Middle of the country, but not middle of the road opinions. It's the podcast dedicated to sports in the air capital of the world.
I'm going to Wichita.
Wichita, Kansas, and beyond. With Tommy Castor, Weston Mills, and Blake Cripps. This is Keeper of the Games.
That is correct. We are the wildly underqualified yet mildly entertaining podcast that's all about sports in and around the air capital of Wichita, Kansas, and beyond. I'm Tommy Castor. Welcome into another episode of Keeper of the Games. We are in Season 2, episode number 16. It is our 64th overall episode of Keeper of the Games, back with you here as we wrap up the month of May. And I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts. We'll start with Blake Cripps, who, Blake, I know that you have been mourning the loss of the NHL on NBC for the last couple of days. So I'm glad that you were able to pull yourself out of your grief and join us here tonight.
You know, if Doc Emmerich were still working games, that would be so much harder to take. But he's retired. You know, the NHL on NBC for me is kind of an institution because it grew up with my hockey fandom. Like the NHL on NBC became a thing as I got into hockey. So for it to not be on there is really crazy. I like that it's back on ESPN. I love that theme music is back. And Turner Sports, you know, I think they've done a good job covering Major League Baseball. I like their NBA coverage. Even I like their NBA coverage way more than I like the NBA. Like I'll watch Inside the NBA with Shaq and Kenny and Chuck and EJ. You know, dude, who cares about the stupid games? Just give me that show. And Shaq did a fool, and I'm good. So, and they do a good job with the NCAA tournament too. So I'm interested to see how this works out, who they will bring in, and what that television package will look like for the next 7 years. But yeah, it is NBC Sports to me. Man, they got Sunday Night Football. What else they got? I mean, they used to have the Wimbledon, the French Open, all the golf majors, and now they got nothing, babe. They got the British Open. Thank God they have the U.S. Open back. So at least there's some sanity left in my sports world. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Turner Sports in the NHL.
Yeah, I'm not an NHL fan whatsoever. However, if Chuck and Shaq start covering NHL games, then all bets are off with me. I'm saying, you never know what that might look like. We're also joined by Weston Mills here on the program. Weston was under the weather a week ago, so Blake and I flew solo, or I guess flew duo on the show a week ago because Weston was not with us. And Weston, we were debating on whether or not your absence had anything to do with the fact that you attended the Royals game when it was like 32 degrees outside. Was that part of the reason why you missed the show, and how are you feeling today?
Well, let me first start by addressing the elephant in the room. I am a proud owner of 423 Dogecoin. That's the only information I will speak to. Anything else, you can talk to my lawyer about that. Going back to my illness, no, I got as I told you guys, I got the second shot of Moderna, and I was at the Royals game. I didn't get home till midnight from that Royals game even. And so a combination of that and then the second shot, and I didn't feel that sick. I was just, exhausted. And I don't know if either of you, it reminded me of my senior year of college ball. I broke my hand and they prescribed me Loratab. I took one Loratab and was like, I could not function. I was so that amount of exhausted from it. And that's the only way I can really describe how I felt. I didn't really feel that sick. I was just a zombie. And then, so absolutely probably a combination of the Royals game the day before, but happy to be back. You guys, we pretty much fly solo. You two kind of equal one. So that kind of makes sense that you were flying solo without me, but
There's the most incendiary take.
Hey, I gotta come in pistols blazing after missing last week.
We're glad that you're feeling. We're glad that you're back feeling 100%. We're glad that you're back here on the program. We want to remind all of you to hit subscribe. That way, anytime we have a brand new episode of the podcast, you will be notified. Of course, you can listen to us on all major streaming platforms, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, all the major ones. Wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, you'll be able to find Keeper of the Games. Our website is cogsports.com. Of course, you can also watch this episode on the Keeper of the Games YouTube channel and on Facebook by searching for Keeper of the Games, and you can follow us anytime on Twitter and Instagram at COGPod. That's at KOGPod. On the program this week, sounds like KU zeroing in on a new head football coach. We'll discuss what that may look like for the Jayhawks. Also, the Royals just a couple of days ago had the best record in baseball, and as it stands right now, they have the best record in the American League. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes as well. Shocker baseball and softball with a crucial weekend coming up for both of them, our Wichita Whip Around, and a whole lot more. But we kick off the program with it's probably the favorite show, the favorite topic that Weston Mills will ever have on Keeper of the Games, because on Thursday night we're just hours away from the NFL draft taking place. And Weston, I remember a year ago we did our first ever NFL draft episode here on Keeper of the Games. It was just you and me, and I was pretty impressed with the amount of research that you put in to the NFL draft. And although we're not going to have time, unfortunately, to go through every single one of your picks throughout the entire draft, there's a lot that we want to talk about as it relates to the Kansas City Chiefs. So first off, let's start with the big story with the Kansas City Chiefs. It happened on Friday afternoon as the Chiefs traded away their first-round pick, the 31st overall pick, also a third-round pick, 94th overall, a fourth-round pick, 136th overall, and a fifth-round pick for next year to the Baltimore Ravens, as the Chiefs are looking to completely rebuild, and they have completely rebuilt their offensive line. They picked up offensive tackle Orlando Brown from the Ravens. They also got a second-round pick, 58th overall, and a sixth-round pick for next year. So, Weston, let's start right there. Number one, we all know that the Chiefs were looking to completely revamp that offensive line after the outing that they had in the Super Bowl back in February. Were you surprised this deal got done? And if not, were you surprised that these were the terms of the deal?
So no, I'm not surprised that the deal got done, and I'll admit, hand up, I don't think at the end of last season I did not think they were going to really revamp the offensive line. I kind of looked at it as like, oh my gosh, they had so many injured pieces, for a team that got to the Super Bowl. But boy, was I wrong. And I, with that being said, I don't necessarily think that it was the wrong move or anything like that, because they've done a great job, in my opinion, of repiecing this back together. But we're going to get into the details of the draft right off the bat, because you asked if I was surprised if this deal got done before the draft, and obviously there was a lot of talk going into kind of the Chiefs are probably looking at a left tackle. They got to hold that left tackle. Eric Fisher's gone. What are they going to do? They have Rimmers, who's going to be at right. They've got Lucas Niang coming back, but is completely unproven. This will be his true rookie year after sitting out last year. What are they really going to do at left tackle? So I think a lot of the focus was on who Kansas City might take at 31 with that left tackle spot. Well, there was a lot of talk up to the draft, and this is why I'm not surprised. Andy Reid is a strong believer in offensive linemen that have a arm length over 32 inches. He does not like to draft linemen with 32 or, well, really sub 33 inch arms. If you look at the top five to six, projected tackles in this draft, notwithstanding Penny Sewell, who will be the first offensive lineman off the board, all those tackles had sub 33 inch arms. So it does not surprise me at all that they took a hard look at this draft class and said, let's go get somebody proven. I think the only thing that is a question with this move, because I mean, if you've been following Orlando Brown Jr., he's solid left tackle for the Ravens. I mean, he's an absolute monster, 6'8", 355 out of Oklahoma, 2-time Pro Bowler in the 3 years he's been with them. Fantastic. But now you've traded for someone that you're going to have to pay, because he is entering into his last year of the deal. Not that that's a problem, but that's one approach compared to saying we'll take the young tackle that we can have on a rookie deal for 4, potentially 5 years. So that would be the only, in my opinion, con to this, is just that you have to pay him. But as we've all discussed, I think each one of us have admitted to this, like paying the guys that protect Patrick Mahomes is probably the second most important thing to paying Patrick Mahomes for the Kansas City Chiefs football team. So I love the deal. I think it's funny that you get into the particulars of, arm length and those kind of things, but I think it really did make a difference here when they kind of analyzed this draft class. And I love the move. I think it's exciting for the Chiefs.
I don't really have any preconceptions as to whether or not the Chiefs gave up too much or, what they're not going to get back. I think that the deal was that the Chiefs gave up this year's number 31 pick, 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, next year's 5th round pick, and then they got a 2nd round pick this year and a 6th round pick for next year. So basically they flopped rounds next season, and it's 2 picks. The Chiefs are giving up a couple of picks. They're getting a 2nd round pick. So I guess three for 1 this year, plus they're getting Orlando Brown. You guys both know that I don't care about the NFL draft, not what I choose to spend my attention on. So I'm going to focus on Orlando Brown. I would hesitate to say that he's a proven commodity. You have to remember he did not play full-time at left tackle for the Baltimore Ravens, was forced there due to an injury last year. Now, his rating was very good. A PFF rating, he had no sacks or hits allowed and 389 pass blocking snaps. That's pretty tremendous. So I feel like you have a guy who, as Weston said, he is playing in the last year of his rookie contract. And what often happens to guys when they are playing in the last year of the contract? A lot of times they have a big year because they want to get paid. Doesn't matter if you're a running back, if you're a defensive end who needs to have a big sack year, if you're a quarterback who needs to have a 5,000-yard passing year, you sometimes will have a very, very, very big year. So for the Chiefs, the way I look at it is you still have a team right now that has a window that is open. I'm not on the same side as all these Chiefs fans like, oh my gosh, we have to massively upgrade our offensive line. It was so bad. Remember, there were a ton of injuries last year. Offensive line wasn't a problem. The health of the offensive line was a problem. And we did not have a Duvernay Tardif because he, went off to do his duty to his country of Canada. And I'm sure that they are extremely grateful for that. But by everything that I've read, and maybe you guys have seen something else, he is planning to be back. So if you can add a piece like Orlando Brown, who had a very good 2020 in halftime as a left tackle, wants to prove himself as a left tackle, which is one of the main reasons he wanted to come to Kansas City. In 2019, he was a very solid, as Weston mentioned, Pro Bowl offensive lineman on the other side. He had the 8th best grade on true pass sets from that right tackle position. I feel like you do have a guy who has proven that he can play at the NFL level. Now, can he play left tackle at the NFL level on a week-in, week-out basis? He's got a chance to prove it this year, but you've got a 1-year rental for cheap. This team, this season, let's make no mistake, guys. This is a team that I believe Kansas City thinks can win the Super Bowl this year. And so when you bring a guy in for 1 year with a wide open window, if he plays well, great, sign him. Maybe the Chiefs will give him a franchise tag or be able to extend it for 1 year. I don't know how all that stuff works. But if you bring in a guy, and obviously we saw in the Super Bowl what will happen if the Chiefs ever don't have a good offensive line. Like I said, last year, that was a very special set of circumstances and a very special year where guys got hurt. There were a lot of injury problems, and one of their starters opted out of the season. So when you bring in a guy like Orlando Brown, I think he's got the potential to really be a very good left tackle based on his body, based on his lineage. His dad played in the NFL, and I loved in the interview, he said all the right things about how he doesn't feel like he's proven enough yet, that he wants to prove to himself, to the league, to his family, that he can be that guy on the left side. I like the move. And so I'm excited for Orlando Brown. Whether the Chiefs gave up too much or not enough, I don't really care. I like Orlando Brown. I think he's going to help the offensive line for Kansas City, and I would love to see how he works with Patrick Mahomes. I don't know how mobile Orlando Brown is. Mahomes is going to be a very active pocket. You would think coming from a system that has Lamar Jackson that he would be very used to slotting into a quarterback, protecting a quarterback that can run around a lot. So from all those aspects, I like the signing, Tom, and I think that he could be a really good fit in red and gold.
The only thing I'll correct you on in what you were saying is when you brought up Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. I don't know if you know this or not, but he now pronounces his name Tardy Darif. If you follow Chris Sims on Twitter, Chris Sims completely.
Is that a real stat? Is that a real thing?
Yeah, Chris Sims completely botched his name and called him Tardy Darif. Unfortunately, a couple weeks ago. So, yeah.
I thought you actually said this. The reason I asked is because this happens in tennis literally every year, where a pro will come out and they'll say, "Oh, you need to say my name." Novak Djokovic did this for like 6 straight seasons, and then changed his name, and finally we got it. Okay, it's going to be Djokovic, and just shut up about it already. So I actually thought I may have made a mistake there.
No, not at all. I'll tell you my philosophy on this whole Orlando Brown trade is sort of the same thing that you guys have been talking about. Really, the only risk there for Kansas City is if they're not able to get a long-term deal done with him. I would have a lot more ease, I think, with all of this if Orlando Brown had come into Kansas City and said, not only did I get traded to the Chiefs, but I'm going to start to negotiate a long-term deal with Brett Veach right away. And obviously he didn't do that. And I understand why. I think he wants to play this final year and then see what happens to him on the free market. I don't blame him one bit. If I were Orlando Brown, I would probably do the same thing. You've been playing on your rookie contract. You're not making a ton of money, but you've been playing at a level to where you can make a lot more money. And so if he can, have great success in Kansas City, then the free market will determine what he should be getting paid next. And can Kansas City match that? I don't know. That would be something that would, they have to find out at the end of the season. But I do understand from his perspective why he didn't start to begin to negotiate a new contract with Kansas City right away. But as a Chiefs fan, you kind of wish that he would. In fact, you definitely should wish that he did that, considering you don't have to worry then about the fact that you've traded these draft picks away for what potentially, Blake, you said, can kind of amount to a 1-year rental at left tackle for Kansas City. The one thing I do like about this move is that, we all know that Orlando Brown requested the trade from Baltimore. We know that he was ready to move on, not because of any ill will towards the Ravens, but because he wanted to play left tackle. That was his natural position. That was the position that he was not playing with Baltimore. And so he wanted to play there, and he's going to be able to, you would think, in theory, be able to excel in that position that he wanted to play all along with the Chiefs. So overall, with all the different additions on offensive line, I mean, it's going to be a completely different looking offensive line this coming season as it was last year, as opposed to last year. With Orlando Brown there, Joe Thuney is there. Kyle Long came out of retirement to join the Chiefs. So it's going to be a new look offensive line for Kansas City. It'll be exciting to see what will happen for the Chiefs this coming season as far as they, are protecting Patrick Mahomes. Weston, as far as the overall draft is concerned, now that really it looks like offensive line has been taken care of, let's talk a little bit about the pressing needs for Kansas City entering into this year's draft. We know they do not have, as of right now, a first-round draft pick. Their first pick will be that 58th overall pick that they received from the Ravens. What are some of the top needs that Kansas City has going into the draft?
Yeah, I think there's 3 positions that really come to mind when I'm thinking of it. I think for sure, a wide receiver and or playmaker. I also could see them potentially going the backup tight end route, but I think wide receiver, then certainly a true 5-tech defensive end. So, or not 5 or 7, because you get Tano Passanio is gone now. So hand in the dirt defensive end. We're not talking about an edge rusher. Hand in the dirt defensive end. And then I think an off-ball linebacker are the 3 positions. Cornerback is always depth in the secondary is always something you're looking at. Depth on the offensive line is something you're always looking at. But I think the 3 positions they particularly are planning on addressing it through the draft and early is going to be linebacker, wide receiver, and defensive end.
So as far as, kind of the top need, though, I mean, I think you can always look at the Chiefs' defense. I mean, obviously, wide receiver is there, tight end is probably there. That's not going to probably be a 2nd or 3rd round pick, right? For the offensive positions, we're really looking at maybe a defensive end or maybe even a linebacker early on.
I don't think so. I think this move put them in a position, and I'm not so much saying whether you agree or not. my thought is the Chiefs believe that the roster is in a balanced enough position where they can now take best available. And I think that's somewhere where Brett Veach always wants to be. I mean, just like last year, certainly running back is not something that you thought that they were going to go for. I mean, you've just heard a lot of things about what he wanted, and then they do go Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because they were in a position, I think, to take that talent. But, this year, I really do think they've put themselves in a position. I really think second and third round, I think you're probably looking at linebacker and wide receiver. Particularly, I think a couple of names that I've kind of been, playing around with. And as you know, this can be so hard because one little domino can have such a ripple effect on the whole draft. But I think a name that I keep coming back to is Dylan Moses, who's a linebacker from Alabama. He's got great coverage skills, so I think that what he can do is you've already got Willie Gay, Anthony Hitchens, pretty much in your two down. I mean, Kansas City plays majority out of the nickel, so you're only getting two linebackers on the field at most of the time. But even in three down sets, he can slide into that will linebacker, that weak side linebacker position, let Willie Gay play that strong side. And then that gives you so much flexibility with down distance position football because you've got, you can bring Anthony Hitchens in when you're in those run situations. You can slide him off the field and have Dylan Moses or a linebacker of his versatility into that position and have two great coverage linebackers because Willie Gay does great in coverage too. And that's, modern football. That's what we're really looking for is being able to stop that passing game, but not giving up too much with the run. And then I think the other name that I don't know that I've heard this out there, but I'm kind of interested in is, and I may screw this up, but it's Simi Fehoko. From wide receiver from Stanford, big body wide receiver. I think he came in at 6'4 or 6'5, like 227, ran a 4.38, but that was at a pro. I mean, that's at the Stanford Pro Day, so that number is going to be, of course, it's always beneficial when you get to host the pro day. It's never as good when it is at the combine, but I really think that's where they're going to go. I think maybe Nate Hobbs, cornerback out of Illinois, or that position as well. But I think they're really gonna draft as the board falls to them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go edge. I wouldn't be surprised if they go corner. I wouldn't be surprised, if they take maybe a guard or a center because that's the way the board fell. I really think part of the move to bring in Orlando Brown, not so much part of the move because obviously it's finding that starting left tackle, but the reason they were willing to give up compensation was they felt it also put them in a good position to be able to draft best available and not feel like they have to reach for a position. And one other note that I heard, I don't know what this means. I'll let you guys see if you know. Brett Veach has been quoted saying that he thought the back half of the second round was a hot zone for draft picks, which he made that comment prior to, trading the up, basically trading that third and going up in the second to have 2 seconds in the back half of that second round. So I think that'll be interesting to see what they do. And I know he must like the talent pool there.
Listen, the one of the reasons why I always disliked draft talk when I was in sports radio is because there is no truth in any of this discussion this time of year. You can span that all you want. Coaches will literally say anything. It doesn't matter what they say. They will say, oh, this is a hot zone. We want to do this. And, oh, this is our guy at quarterback, whatever. And then guess what? On draft day, they will do the exact opposite of what they've been telling you for 3 months. So I don't care what any of these coaches say about their guy, who's drafting a quarterback, whatever. It means it's junk. It doesn't mean anything because they are liars. And by the way, I'm not begrudging them for being liars. They should have their team's best interests at mind. And if that means they need to hold the cards close to the vest and lie to teams to create interest, we've seen that before. Like, oh boy, I think they're going to take this guy. They had no intention of taking this guy. They wanted to get people to trade up for their spot so they could get a better deal and take the guy they really wanted 10 picks down the line and have, first, second, third rounder. That's all they're doing. That's all this is just negotiation. This is, if you are a poker fan, this is the poker of the NFL. bluffing teams, making moves, making plays. And if you're into that sort of thing, great. It's fantastic mind games that these GMs are playing with one another. But in terms of what it actually means, I don't think it means anything. The only thing I disagree with is I don't know if the Chiefs need another playmaker. I mean, they have playmakers at every position. They've got the quarterback. They've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, with Damian Williams being released, what will that look like? I don't know if Le'Veon Bell is coming back. Kind of sounds like he's not coming back to Kansas City. What does the offense look like with only one really established running back coming back for Kansas City? You've got Tyreek Hill at the wide receiver spot, and you got the best tight end in the league. So I don't know if I agree that they need a playmaker. I do agree with Weston that I think that they will take the best available player. And I mean, when you describe the Alabama linebacker, I mean, what are teams doing now in the NFL? Most of them are throwing the football. So if you can tell me that you're going to get me a linebacker who played at Alabama, that think that they had a pretty good program over the last few years, and a guy who can be in coverage and can also slide down to defend the run, that sounds like a pretty good pick to me. So Weston, you've sold me on the Alabama linebacker in the second round, but in terms of what, the GMs say and what it actually means, it doesn't mean anything. The GMs this time of year should not be trusted to tell their wife what they had for lunch, much less what they're actually going to do on draft day. I mean, you can spam that horn all you want. It doesn't make me wrong.
Apparently, so Blake is not in on Trevor Lawrence going number one. That's definitely not. We can't believe that that's happening. We cannot believe that Zach Wilson's going number two. We can't believe that the 49ers are taking a quarterback. I'm just saying that's out there. That's going to happen. I get what you're saying. There's a lot of smoke screens, but I think you can pick and choose what means something and what doesn't. It's all speculation. It's all just for fun at this point, right? I mean, it's really, like you said, I mean,
I know.
It's mock draft season. It's talking about what the Chiefs might do, and then it'll be the discussion we care about is what did they do. But
I mean, I get it. Sports radio needs content. You need something to talk about. I get it. I understand it. But there's and Trevor Lawrence may very well end up going number one. And where Justin Fields goes, that's a big question in the draft because a lot of people say he should be the number two quarterback. It sounds like with projections, he's going to be down at the end of the first round. But to me, it doesn't matter. Like I said, I would not trust these coaches at all to tell me anything. I would not trust them to tell me that gravity works downwards right now at this time of year. Don't trust them.
I was just going to say, according to Weston Mills' mock draft, Justin Fields actually going number 7 to the Bears as they move up, make a trade with the Lions. And
also, Weston Mills has his own draft. Wow. When is that getting featured next to
I'll be tweeting it out from the Keeper
McShay.
of the Game's Twitter account shortly following this airing. So we will, so our fans can follow along, see how well I did or didn't do.
I would just like to point out that a year ago, when we did our very first draft edition of Keeper of the Games, Weston posted his entire mock draft on our website. And I went back and looked at it later, and it was incredibly inaccurate. Like, there were very few picks
it's
that actually
relative.
panned out the way.
It's got to be all relative. How did I do compared to Kuiper or McShay or Daniel Jeremiah?
Okay.
And I don't.
How did you
I
do
didn't think
compared
you'd
to
ask that, 'cause I
Kuiper
really
and
don't know.
Oh my God. The final
gracious.
thing that I'll say about the draft before we move on is that, when you look back at Kansas City a year ago, we spent a long time talking about all of the pressing needs that the Chiefs had. Now, obviously, they had just come off a Super Bowl victory, and so we were kind of talking about best available. But then there were some needs, like I remember we talked a lot about the secondary needing help, cornerback position needing help. We talked, offensive line at that point. I mean, there were a couple of positions that really seemed like the direction that the Chiefs were going to go. We didn't talk at all about a running back out of LSU named Clyde Edwards-Helaire that was taken in the first round by Kansas City. So, you want to talk about playmakers. I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to do that 2 years in a row, but when there is an exciting, dynamic player, and there really isn't at this point a need that is slapping the Chiefs in the face, really offensive line was kind of that need. They got that taken care of through free agency and through trades. you have to think there might be an opportunity where when the Chiefs get into the second round, they are just going to take whoever the best available player is. If it happens to be an edge rusher, so be it. If it happens to be somebody in the secondary, so be it. If it happens to be a wide receiver or tight end, so be it. But they're going to take the best available player and then just go from there. So that is a luxury of having a team that has made it to 2 straight Super Bowls, has a Super Bowl championship, has gone to 3 straight AFC championship games. You have that luxury a little bit when you have a complete football team of being able to take the best available player. And so that wouldn't surprise me one bit if that's what the Chiefs did. Any final thoughts, Weston? I know that, draft time it's like Christmas for you.
I love the draft.
So, we're recording this the night before the draft happens. So it's got to be like Christmas Eve right now for you. Any final thoughts, any parting shots on the NFL draft as it relates to the Chiefs?
Yeah. So the only other couple things I'll add, and it's not so much Chiefs, but it is local. A couple of names to keep an eye on. So Puka Williams is probably going to get drafted. He'll probably go in the back 5, 6, 7 rounds. Khalil Herbert, I actually, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure, of course you guys remember him. Where did he actually play last year?
Virginia Tech.
That's right. I actually think that's a name that I would keep in mind as you talk about what the Chiefs are doing to fill that lack of depth now at the running back spot. I think he contrasts a little bit with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That would be a nice fit. Not saying I've seen that or I'm not sure how early he would go if the Chiefs would take him that early, but I think that would be a fit. And then another name I think will be really interesting is Wyatt Hubert out of Kansas State. I actually think he would be a very nice fit. Someone that potentially could come in and compete for a starting job while we have a defensive end spot open. I will say he is a little bit smaller than Steve Spagnuolo likes his defensive lineman, but we took Mike Dana last year and he had a lot of success. Spags had a lot of success with Mike Dana, so I think he's open to taking a smaller defensive end to fit that spot. I think he'd be a nice fit for a guy who's proven, he understands the art of pass rushing. He might not have the numbers that jump off the chart as far as speed and size and strength, but he just gets to the quarterback, and that's what we need. So a couple of local names, I think, to really watch in this draft, and it'll be exciting to see where they land.
Well, the first round of the NFL draft kicks off on Thursday night. Of course, Kansas City does not have a pick in the first round of the NFL draft, and so don't really have to worry about that until the second round comes around, unless some kind of trade happens with Kansas City trading back in the first round, but I doubt that will happen. But we'll make sure to keep an eye on it, and next week on the program, we'll give you a breakdown of who those draft picks are for Kansas City. Let's transition into the University of Kansas and their search for a new head football coach. Now, as recently as Tuesday, guys, we always put out the rundown of the show. We always talk about, all right, what order are we having our topics and breaking them down. As recently as Tuesday, we had this on the rundown, but it was pretty far down on the list. We're moving it up because the search, it looks like, is heating up for the new head football coach of the University of Kansas. At the time of this recording, there is still not an official announcement on who the new head football coach will be for the Jayhawks this upcoming season. However, multiple sources and multiple reporters and journalists are reporting that it is now down to a 2-horse race between Lance Leipold from Buffalo and Jeff Monken from Army. There are some other candidates that have been in the mix. However, as recently as just a couple of hours ago on Wednesday, from the time that we're recording the show, there have been other reporters that have said some of those other names, like Skip Holtz, who is currently the head football coach at Louisiana Tech, is no longer in the mix. Mike Elko, who is at Texas A&M, is no longer in the mix. Those have not been confirmed yet, but there are a lot of sources that are saying that's the case. So as of right now, it does look like those two names are Leipold and Monken, Buffalo and Army, as the two leading candidates to lead the Jayhawks program moving forward. So Blake, I will start with you. I know that I've seen you be active on Twitter a little bit as it comes down to this search and sort of relates to what's going on with that. You seem to be a little bit nervous about what this pick is going to look like for the Jayhawks football program. I'd love it if you elaborated and explained how you're feeling right now about this pick.
Yeah. I mean, somebody said, it was a Kansas State radio guy who hosts up at KMAN and does pregame, postgame. Mr. Kurtz, who's a great guy. I've had professional contact with him. And he's been a really good guy. But he asked, should Kansas State fans be concerned? I said, well, I'm not your target demographic, but I'm concerned. And the reason is because KU's botched every single one of these since the one they did in 2002. So what makes you think they're going to get this one right? If you're not concerned, then you are insane, because the last hires that they have done, literally all of them have been complete debacles and failures. Okay. Turner Gill, failure. Charlie Weiss, failure. David Beatty, failure. Les Miles, they're all failures. They get an F grade. They have done nothing. They all have losing records. And, Les Miles came in, we're going to have a dominant team. Where is that dominant team? Because it's not playing in Lawrence, Kansas, okay? The way that they talked up Turner Gill when they brought him in like he was going to be the savior and restore respectability back on campus, that lasted 2 seasons. Charlie Weiss, bombastic, probably exciting for the fan base like Les Miles was, but amounted to nothing. And David Beatty amounted to nothing. So there should be very, very little confidence among KU football fans that they're actually going to get this right. Now, I understand there was a new athletic director. We had a new AD when they made the last hire. And Shane Zenger was a new AD when he made a couple of his hires. So that's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about KU getting this wrong because Weston, at this point, in KU's life cycle where things are going and there's talk of conference realignment maybe rearing its ugly head again in 3 to 7 years from now, I don't want KU to be in a bad spot with its football program, and there is very little reason for me to believe that it won't be in a bad spot based on past track records. KU does not do a good job at hiring football coaches. It never has. I'd like to think that at some point they will be, but there's no evidence to believe that that's going to change with this hire.
Don't worry. I'm going to bring some positivity to this. I know we can't talk KU football without Blake
I would like some
absolutely
positivity.
Just raining poop from the sky down on the Kansas football program. We can never get any positivity out of this guy.
That's called reality, Weston.
I'm excited about where they're at with these two, with Leipold and Jeff Monken, and I am all in on Jeff Monken. I won't be disappointed if it's Leipold. I do think you're going to get some quick criticism from the fans if you hire another Buffalo coach after the last disappointment from hiring a Buffalo coach. But I'm all in on Jeff Monken, and here's why. First of all, I cannot imagine there are many places in the nation that is tougher to win than Army. I mean, you have to literally commit 4 years to serving in the United States military to go and play on that football team. That's a tough ask of a lot of really good football players out there. It's a lot of players that would never even for a second consider Army, even if Army was a dominant program, because they're just not going to commit to that. Second, I love the idea of someone that has put forth such a regimented, I'm going to use the word strict, but that probably is not the right word for it, but, regimented, structured, guided program, because that's what Kansas needs. I think whether you think Jeff Monken is the guy to do that, I think we can all agree after the last, 10 years of football,
is the word you're looking
structure,
for
organization, direction, a plan is what is needed. And it sounds like he's been the guy. I mean, he was that guy at Army. You have to be that guy at Army. And it sounds like, from what we've heard so far, Mike Vernon tweeting his hearings, the plan that Jeff Monken has put forward has been impressive. Third, I actually like the idea of zigging while everyone's zagging, or zagging while everyone's zigging, whatever the correct saying is. Now, we keep hearing, look, Monken is more of a CEO. He's going to run a program. He's involved in the offense. He's involved in the defense, but he will have an offensive coordinator that has some freedom to structure that. But he runs the triple option at Army, right? And that's not going to entirely go away. He's not going to have a choice but to adapt some sort of much more pass-friendly in the Big 12. I think you'd have to keep up, but keeping a decent amount of smash-mouth football that all the other teams in the Big 12 are not seeing, I think is a fantastic idea. When you're already a struggling program, putting a product on the field that is just hard to pick up with 1 week of preparation is only going to help that team get to the point where they're winning some football games, and maybe winning football games that they weren't supposed to win, but you start winning and that helps bring kids into the program and you get better recruits and so on and so forth. So I don't know. For those reasons, I'm excited about the prospect of Jeff Monken. I do think that we're certainly probably at risk of losing some of the recruiting momentum we had, but like Blake said, and I can agree with this, you don't really know where those kids, how they're going to pan out, what they're going to do. So certainly I think having a plan, a structure, some guidance in place is way more important than keeping one or two or three, 3-star guys. I mean, our only 4-star guy, Quay Davis, we had to de-offer or whatever the word is there because of his domestic issues. So, and he was a wide receiver, so you're not even worried about bringing in a triple option guy and then losing your highest recruit because he wants to go play in a pass happy offense because he's gone anyways. So, I don't think there's any risk of that. And so I'm excited about where they've landed, and mostly I think we're all just excited to have a name, right? Just to move forward. I mean, a new name just means at least the next step. Whether that step is the right way, the wrong way, at least it's the next step. I think we're all ready to take that next step.
Yeah, so I'll tell you one clarification about Jeff Monken. It does sound like if he ends up coming to Kansas, from people that maybe have seen his plan or know a little bit about his plan, that he will not solely bring the triple option to KU, that he might bring parts of the triple option to KU, but there will be other different kinds of, offensive schemes that come into play if he ends up as the KU coach. But I do agree with the whole zigging while others zag, or, whatever that saying is. Blake, one thing that I'll bring up to go back to what you were talking about is that I think the biggest difference between what's happening right now with Travis Goff and this search compared to previous searches is that we actually have competent people who are running the search now. We actually have people who are reasonable. We actually have people who are rational. I'm not saying that Shane Zinger was not rational or reasonable, but I don't necessarily think that he had maybe the best pedigree in the world to be able to hire a coach. And we've seen different ways that different ADs have gone about things, and it's kind of gone back and forth. Turner Gill was the disciplinarian after all of the issues that Mark Mangino had, and was, Mangino was forced out. That only lasted a couple of years. Then they went with the big name. That was Shane Zinger, going for a big splash, a big hire in Charlie Weiss, which was a disaster. The big hire didn't work out, so let's go with the no name, somebody that can be an up-and-comer, with David Beatty, who was in way over his head. And then, of course, we all know about Jeff Long wanting to hire his friend, and another big name in Les Miles. At least now we know that Travis Goff is going after somebody that has a pedigree, that is a proven winner. And one thing I'll say about both of these guys is they both know how to win. Lance Leipold at Buffalo has won 6 Division III national titles. He's 24-10 at Buffalo. They only had 2 winning seasons in the previous 2 decades. Monken is 43-21 at a place that only had 1 winning season in the 17 years before he arrived. So both of these guys are program builders. They both know how to do it in really difficult places from the ground up. I'm not saying that either one of them is going to be wildly successful at Kansas. We don't know that. None of us have a crystal ball, but at least we know that these guys have a proven pedigree to win at places where it's difficult to do so. And that's what both Leipold and Monken are known for. I also think that what makes this search a little bit different from previous searches, especially like when David Beatty was hired and then Les Miles being hired, is the roster is in a better position now. It's not good by any means, but it is in a better position right now than it was for those previous 2 hires. We all know about how Charlie Weiss absolutely decimated the program with all the transfers, the JUCO guys coming in, and the scholarship numbers and all of that. That's been kind of rebuilding over the last couple of years. That is one positive that I will say about David Beatty and Les Miles, is they both made concerted efforts to try to fix that roster. And so I'm not saying it's fixed, but it is in a better position than it was before, which is probably why you're seeing a little bit of a higher pedigree of coaches being interested in the job. So that's kind of my takeaway from this. I like Lance Leipold. I like what he's been able to do over the course of his entire career. And then going to a place like Buffalo where he's taking them to bowl games. And it's not like Buffalo ever went to bowl games before. That's what he did. I think he can do the same thing at Kansas. But again, I don't think you can go wrong with either guy. As far as the timeline is concerned, Blake, we know that the spring football game is coming up for Kansas this weekend. Emmett Jones is still the interim football coach. Do you think it's the right move if Travis Goff can land on a name officially, they get everything taken care of, to have this coach announced prior to this weekend? Or should they let Emmett Jones coach the spring game without any other kinds of distractions and then roll out the new coach maybe next week?
I don't think it really matters, to be honest. To me, I mean, I think definitely you should tell. You know what? I might go to Coach Jones and ask him what he prefers. And by the way, you've mentioned, Tommy, we've heard all these other names that have been disqualified from the coach, not because they pulled their name out, but just because it sounds like KU is kind of eliminated Holtz. So it sounds, I have not heard Coach Jones's name, removed. I haven't heard that he is not going to be, that he's not a candidate for the job currently. So maybe that's going to be a shocking hire. I don't expect that to happen. I'm just saying, for the purposes of this discussion, maybe we should treat it like it is a three-man race, although as you mentioned, most all of the reports, 99, in fact, I think 100% of the reporting is saying it's down to those two guys. To me, it doesn't really matter. I think it's okay to make the hire if you're going to do it on Saturday, you should do it after the game. But if you're going to make the hire on Friday, I don't think it's that big of a deal. You're stealing thunder from an interim football coach. If you want to let him coach and do it next week, it doesn't make any difference to me. So with one of you on one side and one of you on the other side, and by the way, Tommy, can we appreciate Weston Mills actually picking a side that's not on the top of the fence? Congratulations, Weston, on that. Fantastic job. I'm going to break the tie. I'm actually over on Weston's side of the fence, believe it or not. I like Monken. It is a different style. KU is never going to get, at least I don't believe that KU is going to get the top level AAA 5-star rated athletes. They never have. And by the way, it doesn't mean you can't win if you don't have 5-star AAA athletes. I think you can. KU won with Mark Mangino playing good defense, getting guys into a system. The pass-happy offensive system that KU run under Mark Mangino was a little bit more revolutionary at the time. It cut against the grain a little bit more than it does now. Now everybody's running that thing. I think the triple option would do that, and I wouldn't mind the triple option coming in its entirety to Kansas. I like being that counter-punching team in the Big 12, especially where you're going to be focused on defense. It certainly sounds like Monken is going to be a guy that wants to have the best defense in the conference. And I've seen, not that this has been a vocal majority of KU fans on Twitter, but guys like, I don't want to have people come in and run an offense. It's not any fun to watch. Really? Is 0-9 that fun to watch? In terms of the roster, how good can the roster be when they didn't win a single game last year? So, I don't know what the roster says. The thing that I come back to is exactly what you said, Tommy. He built a program because Army was garbage. They had one winning record between 97 and 2013. He's got him in 4 bowl games in 5 years. So, Weston, I'm with you. I'm with Monken. But you were initially on Emmett Jones as a guy to come in, be given the reins for up to a year to run the program. What will your thoughts be on him still being a candidate? I think he should still be a candidate at this point. I'm not saying he would be my pick, but what do you think about him being a candidate and whether or not they make that announcement? To me, it doesn't make a difference, but I haven't heard that he's been eliminated. Until we hear that he's eliminated, shouldn't we consider that he's still an option?
Yeah, so here's the thing about Emmett Jones. I think my position was more about the opportunity for Kansas to be able to sit on a year and watch a coach that was, that the players were responding so well to, more than I was necessarily saying that I think Emmett Jones is the guy. I thought it was presenting a good opportunity for Kansas to really evaluate Emmett Jones as a coach, with also the understanding that it might be hard to hire someone coming up on the spring season and to be able to even get a quality candidate. But I think now that we've kind of narrowed things down to Lance Leipold and Jeff Monken, I think, a lot of us do think that they were able to find a couple of quality coaches. But I do think also, from a will it affect next season standpoint, I don't think whether you announce the coach tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, after the spring game, I don't think it matters. But I think to those players it does. I think you let them have their spring game. I do think it kind of has a little overclouding effect of their spring game. I don't think it'll affect their play next year, but just let them have, they've worked so hard in the spring. I think you let them have the moment. I think you let Emmett Jones have the moment. And then right after that, you say, okay, hey, now we're taking the next step forward as the program. So again, I think it's a small detail, but I think if you ask the locker room, I think those players wouldn't want to have any disruptions between now and the time the game's played. Wow,
Tommy, you missed it right there. That you were supposed to do an accurate take horn right there. That was an accurate take from Weston Mills. I hadn't thought about what the players. That's a great point. The players should be respected, and it is their day, isn't it? That's a really good point. I give you credit. I tear him down when he deserves it. Weston, that was a great point. I give you credit. Accurate take horn should have been played. Weston, Tommy. That's an E on the host. Host E right there.
I bring the accurate takes, time and time again, and I'm just glad you're finally starting to recognize them. Blake. I know that you've been missing that, but
it's one time. Let's not get crazy here. It's one time.
I just love Blake, how you decide that you want to come in and hijack the hot take horn and turn it into an accurate take horn.
Somebody has to do it correctly.
It's the most boring way to ever play one of those sounds when somebody is accurate. And so I just don't like the fact that you've commandeered that for your own gratification. I'm not a big fan of that.
I mean, I just have to stay on brand, honest. Tommy. Don't you get it?
Apparently so. So that's where things stand right now. Lance Leipold and Jeff Monken, according to a lot of the national reporters, including Dennis Dodd from CBS, Pat Ford from Yahoo, Bruce Feldman, several others have all kind of said that KU is zeroing in on one of those two guys. And the way it tends to work on this podcast for sure is that we always talk about the topic and we always say, yeah, we don't have any other kind of update. And then by the time the show airs, we'll probably have a new coach at KU. That's kind of the way that our schedule works around here. But yeah, go ahead.
So I don't know if you guys saw Mike Vernon. He did tweet towards the end of the day, early evening, that he has noted that Kansas Catering has a catered event tomorrow at one of the event halls that didn't mean anything to me, but I'm assuming it has some sort of tie to the athletic program, and that he could not find any other corresponding event on the KU calendar. No orchestra, no band, no art
do you have a name of the building?
Yeah, it's the Lead Center.
There you go.
That's for a football hiring. That thing is huge.
Well,
it's not even close to the.
Trying to keep things.
It's on the West Campus. It's way far away from the athletic offices. I don't know. That sounded a little bit of a whamboozle there from Mr. Vernon.
The bottom line is that what used to be cool was tracking chartered flights around the country. Now what's cool is tracking catering at different buildings. That's how we start to get our scoops.
Well, it just happened when Patrick Mahomes got hired. Katie Camlin, I think, on Twitter, she tweeted it out, and now she's like some pseudo internet star because she tweeted like, "Hey, so these Chiefs guys came in, they bought all this expensive booze. I think Patrick Mahomes just got re-signed." She was right. She was right, by the way, and she beat Adam Schefter, so it can happen. And if Vernon is correct, I will apologize. I will, tell he's a Nostradamus of KU athletics. I will praise his name to the heavens. But until then, Lead Center for Athletics. I mean, why would you do it over there? It's like a 15-minute walk. It's like in another state practically from the rest of the campus.
Well, the way it stands right now, it wouldn't shock me one bit or shock probably anybody else if there's a new football coach, at least by our next episode. And so when that happens, we'll make sure to talk about it on the next episode. And of course, you can follow the CogPod Twitter for all of the updates. Let's transition into Kansas City Royals baseball. I'm sorry. Let me preface that by saying first place, Kansas City Royals baseball. I'm sorry. Let me preface that again by saying best record in the American League, Kansas City Royals baseball. They set right now at 14-8. However, they're about to beat the Pittsburgh Pirates to move to 15-8 at the time of this interview, barring some sort of late game collapse. The Royals look to get another victory here and continue to hold that lead in the AL Central, continue to have the best record in the American League. Depending on what the Dodgers do, guys, they could have the best record in all of baseball. So Weston, I'll start with you. I know you had an opportunity to see these guys in person front and center a week ago. One of the discussions that Blake and I had a week ago on the program was whether or not this early start for Kansas City is fool's gold or if it's legitimate. We haven't had a chance to have you weigh in on this debate. Where do you think the Royals stand right now? Is this success they're having early on legitimate and a sign of things to come, or is it just kind of a mirage in the desert?
Blake, I'm back. I'm going to ride the fence, baby. Let's do it. So here's the thing. I think this team has a lot of talent. I think they have every opportunity to win the AL Central. But if you look at some of the teams they've played in the beginning of the year, I mean, they opened the season 3 games with the Rangers. They had 3 games against the Angels. They had 4 games against the injured Toronto Blue Jays. Just had a 4-game series with the Tigers, and now a 2-game set with the Pirates. Those are not very good baseball teams. Now, they took 1 of 3 from the Rays. They split with the White Sox. They split with the Indians. So, I think if you kind of look at some quality opponent, I think to think that they're going to finish with the best record in the American League is a little foolish. And I said this from the beginning, do I think they can compete for a playoff spot in potentially the AL Central? Yeah, I do. I think they have that talent. I think, and here's the thing about baseball that is different than football, maybe not so much basketball, but at least from football, is you get yourself in a position to be competitive, to go get a playoff spot. Come the trade deadline, you can fill in some of those weak spots you have by trading away some of your minor prospects without altering your roster. So, if the Royals are in a great position come July, and pitching is still the weakness, they can go out and get 1 or 2 arms to make that pitching staff better. If they're missing one bat, they can go out and get that one bat to make the team better. So I think you have to be excited. I think you certainly have to believe that this team is a good baseball team, potentially a very good baseball team. But I think you just got to pause a little bit when you look at some of the quality opponents they've beat up on. Isn't the best. And that's not to say you can beat up on bad. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do when you're a very good baseball team. You're supposed to beat the bad teams. I just want to see them beat a few more of the better opponents, even particularly just within the division. And then I'll be ready to take a little bit harder of a stance.
To quote the immortal Aaron Rodgers, RELAX. We relax. Just relax.
Wait, how did you spell relax again? What was that?
RELAX. Relax. They just swept the Tigers. The Tigers are terrible. Just like my spelling almost was. I did correct it. Their run differential is minus 35. Their expected win-loss is 8-16, which is exactly what it is. There is no metric that says that Detroit is any good at all. They're terrible. The Texas Rangers are terrible. Kansas City is 4-5 against teams who are at or above 500. Can we just let them have this moment for just a second? They're going to go to 15-9 probably, but they have played nobody. There's no reason to not be optimistic. I'll agree with you there. There are plenty of reasons to be optimistic. Hunter Dozier and Jorge Soler, even though they're having bad batting averages, they're hitting the ball hard. And somebody said they had a hardest hit ball of the night had an expected batting average of 910 last night, and Hunter Dozier had a line out that had a 110 mile per hour exit velocity. So, okay, they're hitting the ball hard now. They're getting a little unlucky. So I will give you that. The Royals still have a bit of an enigma in the starting rotation because we still don't know exactly what they're going to get out of Brad Keller because he's been somewhere.
Brad Keller pitched great. Yeah. He pitched great the other night.
He has 2 really great starts and 3 starts where I could have gone out there and given up what he did. Terrible. 3 terrible starts. So if you want to forget that, go ahead. I have not forgotten. They still have problems in the bullpen. Wade Davis, average. Greg Holland, average. Who do you turn to out of the bullpen? I like Scott Barlow. I like Josh Starmont. Maybe Tyler Zuber can show some more consistency. Danny Duffy has been tremendous in his 4 starts. Brady Singer has pitched well. Junis has been solid in 6 appearances. But, Tommy, here's the deal. The Royals are 7th in ERA. They are 8th in OPS. They are 9th in runs. They are 11th in WHIP in the American League. Does that sound like the best team in baseball to you? No. You can be optimistic. You can think that they can compete for a playoff spot. And as of today, they can. And they are still winning my game. Do the Royals suck? No, they absolutely do not. They are a good team right now. But, Tommy, they have not played anybody. So just relax. It's a winning streak. I get it. They lost it. They're back on it. They're going to beat the Bucks today. But the winning streak was against the Tigers. It was against the Tigers. Just take a chill pill. Let's wait and have this discussion at Memorial Day. We'll have a much better picture of how things are going then.
Here's the thing. You are never, ever, ever going to have a perfect baseball team.
Of course not.
No baseball team is perfect. There are always going to be flaws on any squad, on every roster. There's always going to be an issue. Sometimes that issue lasts an entire season. Sometimes that issue flares up from time to time. Sometimes you have multiple issues. The teams that can manage those issues the best typically are the ones that end up winning a lot of ball games, going to the playoffs, and winning a championship. Typically, that's the way that it works. You look at a couple of the teams across Major League Baseball this season that a lot of people projected would be very strong baseball teams. They've gotten off to slow starts. I know that because I'm an Atlanta Braves fan, and a lot of people were predicting the Atlanta Braves to challenge the Dodgers, challenge the Padres in the National League. The Braves are at 500 right now. They've struggled out of the gate. The Minnesota Twins are another team that people had said they are going to be a powerful baseball team. I think their record is like 8-15 right now.
That is correct.
They've stumbled out of the gate. Here's what the Royals have to have. They either have to have solid pitching on any given night, or if they don't have solid pitching, their offense has to take over. We've seen both things happen for Kansas City over the last couple of weeks. Brad Keller pitched a pretty good game the other night. Danny Duffy has pitched incredible. He's had quality starts every single time he's taken the mound. On Wednesday night, as we're recording this, the game against the Pirates, it looks like the Royals are going to win that game. Mike Minor did not have a good outing. Mike Minor gave up, I think, 4 runs in his outing. But the Royals offense came to play and they put up 9 runs of their own. So the Royals have to find different ways to win. They don't have an elite pitching staff outside of Danny Duffy. And, obviously Brad Keller and Brady Singer have been a little up and down. They don't have an elite pitching rotation. Their offense isn't dominant all the time. They have to find nights where I hate quoting Rex Hudler again, but who's going to drive the bus? And that's really ultimately what Kansas City is looking at. And they have been able to spread the wealth out a little bit and find from night to night different ways to win. Sometimes it's going to be the rotation. Sometimes it's going to be the offense. Sometimes it's going to be the bullpen, but they're finding ways to win. As far as the quality of competition, I get it. I understand that. But my point is that they were able to start off the season with a record of 15-8, the best record in the American League. Now, obviously, the schedule is going to get more difficult for them, but at least they are out in front right now. At least they got off to a head start as opposed to trying to dig themselves out of a hole. Momentum is a real thing in Major League Baseball. And if you can have solid momentum, especially going into a potentially tough stretch of your schedule, I would rather have that than be 5 or 6 games under 500 trying to dig your way out. And so that's kind of where Kansas City is. So yeah, do I think that they are World Series caliber? Probably not, but I do like where they're at right now, and I like where they're headed.
The only other thing I want to add to this too is they are, sitting at 15-8 or going to be 15-8. And I don't know how many teams that have the best record in their division, let alone American League or National League. You can easily look at that roster and go, oh boy, they still have room for improvement just within the confines of their 40-man. I mean, Mondesi is coming back, not to say that he's going to be an improvement here or there, but we all can acknowledge that potential. Mondi comes back and that helps that lineup, or, and maybe even some would expect that. And then, boy, you certainly have about 3, maybe 4 pitchers that are sitting down in the minor leagues that you think, my God, they could be ready this year to help out if we're not getting. I mean, you got Jackson Kowar. I've been hearing great things about Daniel Lynch. You got Chris Bubich, and then certainly Asa Lacy's going to be ready sooner or later. So, I mean, to think that you are in this position and can still identify ways that this team could get better, I think that has to be the most encouraging thing about where they're at right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't necessarily know, when he comes back, Nicky Lopez he came into the game today hitting 278. I mean, that's pretty good. I kind of like what I've seen out of Nicky Lopez so far. He's played pretty well defensively. So, yeah, I'm not, as Weston says, making poo-poo rain from the sky. That's not what I'm trying to do. But, I am trying to give a dose of reality. There are a lot of reasons to be optimistic. Kansas City has played well in a lot of games. Haven't done it against great competition. Still got to get, at some point, Hunter Dozier or Jorge Soler got to start putting up batting average numbers, not just hitting the ball hard. I think that will happen. Eventually, you hit the ball hard, it's going to not get hit right at a fielder. Benintendi has played a little bit better. Carlos Santana had a little bit of a run. So, Salvador Perez has come back to reality a little bit. There are a lot of things to be excited about. I don't know if I would be quite this excited this quickly, Tommy.
I would be derelict in my duty as host if I did not mention the slash line for one Carlos Santana over the last 10 days. 323, 447, 613. Obviously, that's a guy that Blake Cripps was not high on at all.
I mentioned him last week on the show, so don't act like I didn't point out Carlos Santana.
Not only is he hitting for power, he's also hitting for average for sure. And he's showing that he's a hot commodity for Kansas City. And that was a good pickup for the Royals. The Royals have they wrap up this series with the Pirates on Wednesday night. And then from there, it looks like actually that game has not gone final yet. The Pirates did put up another run in the 8th inning. It is 9-6. We do think, though, that the Royals will probably end up with the victory there. But as far as upcoming games, they have a series on the road against Minnesota, a 3-game set that kicks off on Friday. And then next week, they're back at the K taking on the Indians for a 4-game set. So 2 more teams. I know they are division opponents, but 2 more teams with records under 500 coming up for Kansas City. One final note about the Royals before we move on is that they did announce on Wednesday that the Royals will be increasing the capacity inside Kauffman Stadium, and that single game tickets will go on sale for the month of May on Wednesday. So up to 17,500 fans will now be allowed in the K beginning in May. That's 45% of the total stadium capacity. So good news there for Royals fans who want to go check out the Royals play. That's our Royals update. Let's get into Shocker softball and Shocker baseball. Both teams struggled a little bit last weekend, actually struggled quite a bit last weekend. Let's start with softball, though. The way things stand right now for Wichita State softball, it was pretty much as close to a slump, I guess you could call it, as the Shockers have had all season long, as they did drop 3 of 4 games last weekend against USF. Not a great weekend for Wichita State at home. And then, of course, you go back to that loss that they suffered at the hands of KU on Wednesday, April 21st. So the Shocker softball squad had dropped 4 of 5. They lost 3 of 4 in that most recent series against USF, but a big bounce back victory for the Shockers on Tuesday night as they took down number 11 Oklahoma State at home. Final score of that game was 3-2. That was a big momentum booster for Shocker softball as they enter a pretty crucial weekend as they take on league-leading Tulsa on the road this weekend. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday matchup with a doubleheader on Saturday. So, Blake, I'll start with you. I know it's kind of hard to talk about a team that has been so successful all year entering in a slump. And I don't even know if that's the right term to call what the Shockers had in that series against USF. It was a struggle for them, but it does look like they bounced back nicely.
Yeah, I mean, South Florida, like we mentioned, I mean, they were the second place team in the conference at the time. So it's not like they're, just dropping games to some nobody in the American. The thing that I like is you've still got Neely Herring with the game-winning home run in the 6th. But the thing that I think is even more important than that is Bailey Lang got back to being Bailey Lang. The Shockers offense still not really totally healed up. Not that they're injured or anything, but they've been held to 3 runs or less in 6 of their last 7 games. And the one game that they scored a lot of runs in, they won. But even in this win over Oklahoma State, 3-2. However, you beat a top 15 team. They won that series, by the way, 2-1 this year as they played 3 different times in, I think, 3 different months, maybe even. But, to beat a team like that, a program like that, that's really impressive. And here's at the bottom line, Tommy, the softball season, even in college, is long enough. You're going to have a period where, and this goes back to our Royals conversation, you're going to have a period of the year where you play really, really well and you win way more games than you're supposed to. And you're going to have a period of the year where you're really, really bad and you lose a lot more games than you are supposed to. And the best teams have more stretches where they're playing near their mean, where they're good, not exceptional, but they're good, and they limit the really, really bad stretches. And it's the same for Wichita State softball. This was a really, really bad stretch that they had. It was a slump. But they've come out on the other side. Need to start hitting the ball a little bit better. But at the end of the day, Weston, if you want to tell me who I'm picking in this series, I'm going to take the team that has 2 of the best power hitters in the American, Addison Barnard and Madison Peregrine, and 2 of the best pitchers you would ride or die with, Caitlin Bingham, Bailey Lang, and the best fielding team in the conference. And that happens to be the one that plays over at Wilkins at Wichita State University. So I like the Shocks. They're still a good team. They've still got a matchup with number 1 in the country coming up. I don't think that they're going to overlook Tulsa and look ahead to the Sooners at all. I think they want to win a championship. I think that this team is going to bounce back in the correct way from this. I think that they are going to blow out the Hurricanes. That's my prediction. 4. They're going to take 4 from Tulsa. That's my prediction. Wow. They're going to win the American Athletic Conference. They are going to have sensed the doubt creeping in from themselves, maybe from some of the fans around the conference, maybe other teams who are looking at Wichita State say, okay, we finally got them where we want them. I think they're going to erase all doubt this weekend as they go and plaster Tulsa and take them off the map. That's my prediction what's going to happen. Shockers win big this weekend, Weston. Big.
The thing that seems to be, I guess the most positive or you don't worry about the slump as much with this team is it seems like they continue just to rise to the big moments, right? I mean, not that any of the games they lost weren't important. It's certainly not to say that, but they've got 6 wins over top 25 teams. It just feels like this team just really rises to the occasion. And then, so I like that combination moving forward, whether you're talking about winning the American or making a run, towards a national championship, even if you wanted to talk like that. But the other thing is, they win with a good combination. They have good pitching, good defense, and they hit the long ball, which that's just, to me, the perfect combination. I mean, and not to say you can't win other ways. And we certainly, I know we think about back even to going to our Royals conversation, the old Royals days of not hitting any long balls and just wearing people out with singles. But I love what the long teams that consistently hit the long ball, how quickly you can make up a deficit when you do stuff like that. And so I think they're really set up to make a run here. I'm with you. I think there's not much more to add other than, like you said, it's the game of baseball, or softball. 3 of 10 is fantastic. Like you fail more than you win at this sport. You're going to go through slumps. You're going to go through, times where you've got the yips where you're not, being able to dot the black like some of the pitchers have been able to do throughout the year. There's just going to be times when you just can't hit that. You can't hit those spots. You can't hit the softball the way you were before. And they had that, and that's okay. And that's
it's not like they've been getting blown out in these games either. They've been close in all these games.
Yeah. So, I mean, And I guess just kind of going back to the beginning, I think what I like the most about this team, or what gives me the most confidence for them moving forward and to finish out the season to win the American, is that they seem to continuously rise when you put those big games, those big moments in front of them. And there's no reason to not expect that they're going to continue to do that as we finish up the rest of the season.
Well, here's the biggest thing that the Shockers have going for them right now is even though they dropped 3 of 4 to USF, who currently is tied for first in the conference with Tulsa, the Shockers are not out of the race for a league championship by any stretch of the imagination. Tulsa and USF are tied with the conference record of 12-3 right now. That's an 800 winning percentage right now for both of those teams. Wichita State is 15-4-1, which is a 775 winning percentage. So they're, even after dropping 3 of 4 to USF, they're still right on the cusp of being able to take down Tulsa. They might need a little help from USF this weekend. I don't exactly know who USF is playing this weekend. I didn't look at that, but they're going to need a little bit of help, at least from USF, but they are not out of the conversation at all to win a league championship in the American right now. So I think that had that series against USF really, truly impacted in a big way the Shockers' chances of winning a league championship, the stakes wouldn't be as high this weekend against Tulsa, but they absolutely are. The Shockers have an opportunity to walk out of this weekend after their series against Tulsa, potentially league champions for sure. So that's going to be a big 4-game set. It's on the road at Tulsa beginning on Friday at the Collins Family Softball Complex. And then on Tuesday, like Blake mentioned, the Shocker softball team taking on Oklahoma in that rescheduled game from back, I believe it was in March. Wasn't that in March when they were going to play the Sooners? That game was rescheduled for Tuesday, May 4th. That'll be back at home at Wilkins Stadium, the final regular season game for the Shocker softball team. Let's talk a little bit about Shocker baseball right now. Kind of the same story a little bit for Shocker baseball as Shocker softball. A rough weekend for Wichita State on the road at Cincinnati. They dropped 3 of 4 from the Bearcats over the weekend. They got one win. That was on the Saturday matchup. They dropped both games of a doubleheader on Friday and then the finale on Sunday to Cincinnati. They are back in action this weekend for another crucial series in the American as they take on number 8 East Carolina. That's going to be a 4-game set doubleheader on Friday and then games on Saturday and Sunday, both at X Stadium. As it stands right now, Blake, the Shockers are 4th in the American Conference right now. They're behind Tulane, East Carolina, and UCF. The Shockers' overall record right now on the season is 20-15. You know, it's kind of been an up and down roller coaster season for Shocker baseball. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about how they were riding this huge momentum. They took 7 of 8 from Houston. It's been a little bit of a drop off from that point, but the Shockers still have an opportunity to finish on a strong note. Where do you assess where Shocker baseball is right now?
Well, one name that we didn't mention and probably needs to be mentioned a lot more is Garrett Kosis. I think his injury has been huge. And you look at where the Shockers were after they got done mauling the Cougars of Houston. Kosis was a big part of that series. He led the American in home runs, led the American in RBIs at the time of the injury, broken bone in his wrist in the game that was at Riverfront Stadium. And he's out for the regular season, might be able to return for the postseason. He was slashing 330, 750, 398. Can I interest you in that? And the Shockers were awful their first 2 games at Cincinnati. They didn't pitch well. They didn't hit well. And I don't know if you guys listened. Coach Wedge was on his radio show earlier this week. He was basically saying we need to find guys who are going to play how we want to play. And if they don't want to play the way I want them to play, they're going to play somewhere else. Then I'm just paraphrasing. Wow. But that's basically what he said, was that we need to get guys in here who are going to be in our program because he said we've had a long stretch of games where we haven't played very good baseball. And like you said, Tulane is up there in the conference standings, but I think that he was hoping that they would play a little bit better against Cincinnati. So for me, I got to look at Garrett Kosis. They don't have him. They're still trying to kind of find and tinker with the starting rotation. It's a little bit different this year because normally you've got 3 game rotations, but they're doing 4 games in the American to prevent teams from having to play that midweek game for coronavirus. So you're having less contact with other teams, easier to keep kind of a bubble when you're only dealing one team. And so you just have kind of a 4-game set each weekend. So I think that it's a little bit different from how he's going to have to manage the pitching staff moving forward next year. So I think finding that fourth starter has been a little bit of a challenge. Not that it prevented the Shockers from, decimating Houston. But for me, Weston, the pitching's got to get better. They've given up 10 hits or more in 4 of the last 5. And the Shockers have only 1 game with 10 hits in their last 7 and 0 games with 10 or more runs over the llast 7, only 2 with more than 5 runs. So it's been just a stretch here where they haven't pitched it very well. They haven't hit it very well. And when you do that against solid teams, and, you better not do that against East Carolina, because East Carolina will beat you bad. They're a very, very good team, top 10 in the country, and deservedly so. If the Shockers don't turn things around, it could be a very, very ugly weekend for the black and yellow.
Yeah, my outlook on Shocker baseball is certainly not as high as it should not be, as softball is. And they've kind of got the flip effect here of what I was just talking about with the softball program, where if you look at their against RPI top 100 teams, they are 2 for 10 against RPI top 100 teams. So, they've kind of got the flip reverse of softball, where it's like, okay, softball's drop some games here and there, but boy, when you put those quality opponents out there, they're going out there, they're rising to the occasion, they're getting those wins. The baseball team, that's kind of the flip story, right? We're just not getting over the hump to get some of those big wins, some of those big against RPI opponents. Now, they've won some big games that had meaningful impact to the conference, right? You talk about Houston, those kind of things, but they're just not getting those quality wins. So I think you have to be a little bit concerned to see what they can do, especially knowing they have, ECU coming up. I'm not sure I think they're trending in the wrong direction as we come to wind down this season.
Tommy, before you wrap up on this, I do want to make sure that I don't mischaracterize, Coach Wedge. I mean, he's not here to say exactly what he said. I'm not saying that he was, going to take all of his players out back and get rid of them. But he just basically said, hey, we've got to start playing the Shocker way, and the way that we were capable of playing, the way that they have shown that they can play this year in order to get back on track. Because, they've proven that when they are right, they can be really good. And if they can get back to that level before the American tournament, they'll be a tough out. I think that they can, if they play the way they're capable, capable of staying with everybody, including East Carolina. But, I don't think that I'm mincing words or misrepresenting what Coach Wedge said to say that the way the last 2 series has gone, not exactly what he is envisioning Shocker baseball to be long-term.
The good news for Wichita State is that the season is not even close to being over yet. There's a whole nother month of Shocker baseball to go, and a great opportunity for Wichita State, to start to get some of those program-defining victories like Weston was talking about, getting over that hump. It starts with East Carolina at home, a 4-game set this coming weekend. They take on UCF on the road. Next weekend, they've got series coming up against USF and Memphis before they wrap up the regular season. And, they're not out of it yet either. It's going to be kind of tough as far as the standings are concerned for the Shockers to win the American regular season championship, but it's not out of the question. They set it 4th right now, but you're right, Blake. The Cincinnati series was disappointing. We talked about it last week. The Bearcats are kind of a mediocre, middle-of-the-road conference team, and they took 3 of 4 from Wichita State, who at this point I think you could also probably characterize as a middle-of-the-road kind of mediocre American team.
And
right
not just
now.
that, Tommy, but like I told Weston, like that when the Shocker ladies were losing, all those games were close. Those first 2 games against Cincinnati, not that. I think it was 6-0, 12-0, not good games at all.
Yep, without a doubt. So it's going to be another big challenge for Wichita State this weekend inside the ECC, a 4-game series against East Carolina, who is number 8 in the country. So we'll make sure to give you an update on how that series turns out next week on the program. Time to hit the music. It is our Wichita Whip Around, where we focus exclusively on topics that deal with sports in the Air Capital. And, Weston, since you were out last week, it's only right for me to begin with you. So what do you have for our Wichita Whip Around this week?
So I've got 2. I'll just start. I'll start with one, then kick it over to you guys. So first, breaking, maybe breaking news just now. So Wichita Thunder win 7-2 with 5 unanswered against the Utah Grizzlies and have now moved into first place in the league. Wow. And the Rapid City Rush have now moved to 4th in the West. So big news out for the Wichita Thunder with 5 unanswered to win 6-2. And I'm sorry, I think I said 7-2, but they are now 7-2 in the season series with Utah. They won the game tonight 6-2 with 5 unanswered.
Wow, that's quite a turnaround. For me, Tommy, I first of all want to give a shout out to the Navy and Red Jet Nation. They had their Jet Spees, with just kind of their end of season awards banquet. They honor the best players on each team, the teams that had success. So shout out to all the Jets out there. It was great to cover you this year. And I'm going to stay on campus there with my Wichita Whiparound. 2 Newman women's soccer players were named to the All-MIAA team. The MIAA didn't have a real soccer season. None of the stats or records will count this year, but they did have a spring season. The Jets went 3-6-1, which you may be saying, okay, that's really not that good. Why would they have 2 players on the top team? Well, here's the thing. They were 3-6-1 on a Jet team that finished allowing multiple goals twice all season. Twice they allowed multiple goals. They allowed more than 2 goals once all season. They allowed one team to score 3, one team to score 2. Everybody else got 1 or they got nothing. So this was an elite defensive team. Kyra Butler, first team All-MIAA women's soccer at defender. Jordan Ashworth, second team All-MIAA at defender for an elite defensive team under who will still be technically a first season head coach, Jay Holmes, who came over, had so much success at Mays High School, pretty much ran the AVCTL for the women, got them to multiple state tournaments, and also got the boys there to a state tournament. So a local homegrown Sedgwick County guy who had a fantastic season. And, the MIAA women's soccer is very, very solid. So I am super excited. Obviously, got to put the ball in the back of the net next year. But this was a lockdown defensive team on the pitch for Newman, and I'm hoping over at Wilkins, when fans are going to get to come out and see them next year, hopefully the schedule will be more friendly to that. Conditions will continue to get better so that can happen. This could be a really, really exciting team that could really compete and move up the standings next year in MIAA women's soccer. NU Jets soccer. And Tommy, I actually followed the rules, only had one story this week.
Well, that's all right. Weston, we'll go back to you for your second.
Yeah, so the last one is, so it's a story out of Salina, but with Metro Impact, and it actually happened. No, you'll see it's coming back around. Follow. April. So it happened April 17th. I missed last week, but I did want to give a shout out to Sharp Performance. They had the Sharp Performance Combine out there in Salina, Kansas, and that's former Kansas running back Jake Sharp hosted that, and there were 500 student athletes across the Wichita Metro, Hutchinson, as far as Hayes, all attended this combine, which I think is fantastic to highlight for some of these, one, just with the conditions, the kids that just did not get the opportunities to get the proper look, to put that college tape out there, whether it was, this year, just with different schedules, this and that. And secondly, Kansas football in particular, high school football, has a hard time getting any credit that it deserves, and kids just don't get seen, they don't get recruited like they maybe should, and maybe it is accurate, but nonetheless there aren't very many opportunities for kids to go out and showcase. So fantastic that Jake Sharp and Sharp Performance was able to put this on, that 500 kids were able to show up and show out, and I just think it's awesome, and I hope that he continues to have success in putting that thing on for kids across the metro, across the state of Kansas, to be able to go and showcase, to get an opportunity to go play college football.
We like Jake Sharp on this program. We like Jake Sharp.
Yes.
Of course we do. Without a doubt. All right. So here's my story to wrap up the Wichita Whip Around. We're going to talk about Little League Baseball in the Wichita Metro to wrap things up. Kind of ending on a little bit of a somber note, but it's a really neat story with really sad circumstances. So I don't know if you guys have followed or heard about the story of Jeff Hogue, who lived in Wichita with his wife and kids. Jeff Hogue was a prominent baseball fan. He was a Little League baseball coach for 316 Baseball. My friend Matt Beatty, Blake, I know you know Matt Beatty.
Of course.
Matt Beatty is the head of 316 Baseball here in Wichita. Jeff Hogue was one of the coaches for this organization. Jeff Hogue, I believe it was about 2 years ago, was diagnosed with a very aggressive brain tumor, brain cancer. He passed away 24 hours ago. Jeff Hogue is our age, guys. Like Jeff Hogue is like 35, mid 30s. Wow. Leaves behind a wife and 2 kids. His son Owen is 8 years old, and less than a day after his father passed away, just a couple of days ago, Owen decided he wanted to play baseball. And so he went out on the field and he pitched a fantastic game. And he had an inside the park home run less than a day after his dad passed away of brain cancer. It's something that has been shared all over social media. I know the local TV stations picked it up as well, did a story about it. But man, it's kind of crazy. Like, you know, you think of how sports can impact people, bring people together for a certain cause. And just knowing that this 8-year-old boy, you know, just lost his dad. At such a young age, but decided that he wanted to go out and play baseball for his dad and had an incredible game. And just watching the video, if you guys get a chance to watch it on social media or on Facebook or something, definitely do so, because you watch him hit the home run, he slides into home plate, and all of his teammates are like right around him and embracing him and hugging him. And, you know, just pretty incredible story. Obviously sad circumstances. We give our best to the family for sure in all of this, but really kind of an inspiring story and kind of a neat way to show how sports brings people together. So that is my Wichita Whip-Around story. Anything else from you guys on the Wichita Whip-Around front, or is that it?
That's all I got.
All right. Sounds good. That's going to wrap up our Wichita Whip-Around here on Keeper of the Games. Before we wrap up the entire show and get out of here, additions, subtractions, corrections, retractions. Blake, we'll start with you. Anything additional or anything you want to correct?
None at this time, counselor.
All right. Weston, how about you? Any additions or subtractions?
Yeah, I'll take this time to go ahead and do an addition. I'm going to go line by line, each team in my mock draft. I'll just give me.
I'm sorry, Tommy, you're breaking up.
2 minutes.
I'm gonna mute his microphone. I can actually mute his microphone on my end, so I might have to do that.
You can find my mock draft on Twitter.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. I do have one update, not really an addition, but one update that the Royals did defeat the Pirates 9-6, so they did move to 15-8 overall on the season. That game just went final a couple of moments ago. That's going to wrap up our program here for Keeper of the Games. Don't forget to hit subscribe. That way, anytime we have a new episode, you will be notified. Again, you can find us on all streaming platforms, all the major ones, Google, Apple, all of that. Just make sure to download, listen, subscribe to the podcast. Of course, our website, cogsports.com. You can watch the full episode on YouTube by searching for the Keeper of the Games YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CogPod. That's at KOG Pod. And for those of our listeners that do not have the capability or the desire to watch us on video and are only listening, let's tell folks our Twitter handle. Blake, let's start with you.
For our beloved audio listeners, at BE Crips on Twitter.
Oh, me?
Yeah. After I get done, that would be the time that you would talk.
Wow.
I took a show off. I'm a little rusty. At WMills94. Go Chiefs. Big draft day Friday, not tomorrow since round 2. Go Chiefs. Wore the special shirt. Let's get it.
I think we're going to need to practice our segues a little bit better by the time our next show rolls around. You can follow me anytime at Tweets from Tommy. Next week on the program, Blake Cripps takes over the hosting duties, and we've got a lot to talk about. I'm sure we'll have updates on the KU football coaching situation. We'll have a recap of the NFL draft for the Chiefs. We'll talk a little bit about Kansas City Royals baseball. One other note that I'm kind of springing on Blake here very quickly is that Wichita Wind Surge. They will be back in action. Not back in action. They will be starting action up for the first time ever the week after next. So we might need to do a little bit of a Wind Surge preview.
Sure.
And we might even have a special guest on the program. We'll have more details on that in the next several days. So with that, for Blake Cripps and Weston Mills, I'm Tommy Castor. We'll see you next week. Thanks for checking out Keeper of the Games.
Take care, guys.
You've been listening to Keeper of the Games with Tommy Castor, Weston Mills, and Blake Cripps. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and listen on all major podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more. Visit our website at cogsports.com. Find the podcast and videos on Facebook and YouTube at Keeper of the Games, and follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at CogPod. That's KOG Pod.